You feel it in the middle of a crowd. Not sadness, not boredom, something older than that. Something that sits in your chest and hums at a frequency you cannot quite name. You are surrounded by people. Your phone has hundreds of contacts. The city outside your window holds millions of lives pressed against each other. And yet you feel alone. You have always assumed this was a modern problem. Something born from screens, from distance, from the pace of the world. But what if it is not modern at all? What if loneliness is not a symptom of contemporary life, but the oldest signal the human body knows how to send? To understand this, you need to go back. Far back. Not to ancient Greece, not to the Bronze Age, not even to the dawn of farming. You need to go back to the African savanna roughly 300,000 years ago, where the earliest anatomically modern humans lived in small, tight bands of perhaps 30 to 50 people. Your ancestors did not live alone. They could not. A single human separated from the group was a dead human. The predators were real. The elements were unforgiving. Food was scarce enough that a lone hunter rarely survived. The group was not a luxury. The group was everything. And here is where it begins. Your brain in those conditions needed a system to pull you back toward other people when you drifted too far. It needed an alarm. Something painful enough to change your behavior, reliable enough to fire consistently, powerful enough to override other desires. Evolution, over tens of thousands of generations, built exactly that. It built loneliness. The neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent decades studying this at the University of Chicago. He found that loneliness does not just feel bad. It physically reorganizes your body. When you are lonely, your brain shifts into a threat state. Your immune system suppresses the functions that fight viruses and ramps up inflammation instead, because ancient threats were not viral. They were wounds. Predators clawed. Enemies struck. A body alone on the savannah needed to prepare for blood, not illness. Cacioppo called this the social pain overlap theory. The pain of loneliness and the pain of physical injury light up the same neural circuits. Your brain does not treat social disconnection as an emotional inconvenience. It treats it as a wound. This is the first thing you need to understand. Loneliness is not weakness. It is not a flaw in your psychology. It is an alarm system that was calibrated for a world where being separated from your group meant you would probably die before nightfall. Think about what that means. When you feel that hollow ache of disconnection, your body is not malfunctioning. It is working perfectly. It is doing exactly what 300,000 years of evolution designed it to do. It is screaming at you, get back to your people. Researcher Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA showed something remarkable in 2003. She placed participants inside a brain scanner and had them play a simple computer game in which they were gradually excluded by other virtual players. They were not rejected by real people. They were rejected by a simulation. And yet, the regions of the brain that activated were the same regions that activate when you burn your hand or twist your ankle. The anterior cingulate cortex lit up. The insula fired. The body read social exclusion and physical pain as the same category of event. Not metaphorically the same, neurologically the same. Now ask yourself, if this response is so ancient and so deep, why does modern life make it worse? The answer is in the mismatch. Your loneliness alarm was built for a world that no longer exists. It was built for a world where the group was always physically close, always visible, always audible, where you slept next to other bodies, where you hunted and gathered in sight of faces you recognized. The alarm evolved in a context where isolation was brief and unusual. You wandered too far. The alarm fired. You returned. The alarm switched off. But today, the conditions that trigger the alarm are permanent and structural. You can go an entire week without genuine face-to-face contact with someone who knows you deeply. You can spend years in a city of millions and never belong to a stable group. The alarm fires. You reach for your phone. You scroll through images of connection. The alarm reads them as insufficient and keeps firing. The relief never fully comes. And because the alarm stays on, your body stays in threat mode. Inflammation stays elevated. The immune system stays dysregulated. Cacioppo's research found that chronic loneliness is associated with a greater risk of early death than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not because loneliness causes disease directly, because the body was never designed to run its emergency alarm indefinitely. Here is the counterintuitive part. The loneliness epidemic is not happening because humans have become less social. In many ways, modern humans interact with more people in a single day than your ancestors interacted with in a month. The problem is the quality and depth of those interactions. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar, who spent years studying primate social structures, proposed that the human brain evolved to manage roughly 150 relationships at one time. This is now called Dunbar's number. Inside that 150, there are tighter rings. A core of perhaps 5 people with whom you share genuine intimacy. A next ring of 15, then 50, then 150. Beyond 150, the brain struggles to track relationships with any real depth. What modern life has done is not reduce the number of faces you see. It has hollowed out the inner rings. You know hundreds of people. You are deeply known by almost none. The ancient alarm system does not count faces. It counts depth. It counts reciprocity. It counts the feeling of being seen, and it fires when that feeling is absent. Your ancestors in that savanna band knew each other with an intimacy that is nearly impossible to recreate today. They knew who had a short temper after a bad hunt. They knew who was sick and who was hiding it. They knew the sound of each other's voices in the dark. That kind of knowing accumulated slowly, over years of daily physical proximity. It was not optional. It was survival. The group's ability to function depended on every member being legible to every other member. Loneliness, in that context, was information. It told the group that something in its social fabric had torn, and it told the lonely individual to repair it immediately. The feeling you carry today is that same signal, ancient, accurate, and completely mismatched to the world it is now operating in. There is one more layer to this that is worth sitting with. Researchers have found that lonely people do not simply feel more pain. They also perceive the world differently. A 2008 study by John Cacioppo's team found that lonelier people rated the same room as physically colder than less lonely people did. They perceived the same strangers as more threatening. They remembered more negative social interactions and fewer positive ones. Loneliness, once activated, does not just signal danger. It begins to construct a world that confirms it. The alarm becomes a lens, and through that lens, connection looks harder, riskier, less available. The very feeling that is supposed to push you toward people begins to make people look frightening. This is perhaps the most tragic part of the system. It evolved to pull you back toward the group. But if it runs too long, if it becomes chronic, it begins to run in reverse. It isolates you further to protect you from the threat it has now decided that other people represent. You can see this in the loneliest people around you. They do not lack the desire for connection. They have too much. They want it so badly that the possibility of rejection feels catastrophic. Because somewhere deep inside the circuitry your ancestors built, rejection and death are the same outcome. So they stay back. The alarm keeps firing, and the world keeps narrowing. There is no simple fix. No single action that rewires a system 300,000 years in the making. But knowing what the signal is, knowing that the hollow ache in your chest is not a personal failure or a modern pathology, but one of the oldest and most important feelings the human body ever learned to generate, knowing that changes something. It makes the feeling legible, and legible things can be worked with in ways that nameless, formless dread cannot. The next time you feel it in a crowd, in a city of millions, in a room full of people looking at their phones, remember what it actually is. It is your ancestors reaching across 300,000 years, tugging at you, saying, "Find your people. Go back. You were never meant to be this alone." And the strange, ancient truth is that neither were they.